I do this live because I haven't I haven't figured out how to do the recording. I haven't tried to recording. So I understand that Trump has already said that he's not going to renew that Iran arms deal. I was watching a video last night about about Leonardo DiCaprio. It was a real heartbreaker. It shows him and this guy Peck, who has been he's a Hollywood. I don't know what he is, but he's like captaining these children. He was with DiCaprio when DiCaprio was maybe 16 years old, somewhere in that neighborhood, and very very touchy feely. But this guy Peck, who was there, who was like behold the beauty of this person, behold the beauty of this child, this 16-year-old. When Peck had been jailed and I don't understand why the guy's not in jail for the rest of his life, but he has been preying on children forever. He's been indicted on many disgusting counts of I don't even want to talk about it because it just disgusts me and angers me. And the reason he isn't in jail is because most of the judges out there will not indict a brother. Like the brothers who were they all, Pascal and somebody else who were both, in Greece it was bad too. But I mean, they were abusing young men, 16, 15. Apparently that's the perfect age. I had it done to me. Don't get me wrong. I'll hit that eventually. Actually, the person who did it to me is dead right now. I almost killed him, but God spared me that. He was in a coma for 3 days. And I didn't care. I just didn't care. I didn't care. I didn't care if he lived or died. I wanted him to die probably, but I wasn't even aware that he was in a coma for 3 days. When I tried to get away from this person, um, after finding out what he was, he took 2 years to work me. 2 years he took to work me without divulging himself. Now, he had effeminate qualities, people always question, but he had the most beautiful wife and the most gorgeous baby you'd ever want to see. I mean, she was model pretty. Diane was her name. Good girl. Real quiet. How she got involved with him, I don't know. I guess he came across as good looking or something, but he was a real bona fide idiot, that's for sure. He had no grace in him at all. But he had marijuana, he had a car, and he was, I guess he was a lot older than me, but that was okay for a 16-year-old to be mobile and all the pot you want. What I didn't realize right away is it couldn't be any women involved either. We were at a bar one night, and I was talking to these two girls shooting darts, and when we got outside, he punched me in the face. I knew it was because of the girls, but that's not the way he went. Anyway, that's whatever. It's the way these predators are. It's really a good story with a happy ending. That's sort of. It's not a good story. It's a terrible, nasty, grim story where he tried to have me killed. So Disney keeps hiring this guy Peck. It's interesting. The movie Willow that Ron Howard directed, they used Peck as a term of as an insult to people. They would call them Pecks derisively. Anyway, maybe that was Ron Howard talking about this person Peck. I'm so mad. I want to like find this guy and expose him. And all he wants to do is find 16-year-olds and expose them to himself. Now, apparently Hollywood's full of this kind of stuff because then that person, a Jewish gay guy or whatever, the child molester who just died or whatever happened, everybody in Hollywood kept quiet about it. Nobody opens their mouth. And I don't know where, who, why, what, but doesn't that make them guilty to allow it to go on? Isn't the worst thing in the world to endanger children or to put children down the wrong path? Now, like I said about Pascal and his buddy, they were discussing how many young men they had defiled, or how many young men they had entreated for sex, however they did it, and they thought about that, and Pascal, I think, he asked the person next to him. I don't know if this is a real story or a philosophical discussion or whatever it is, but it makes perfect sense. So Pascal, who these guys have been molesting or preying on children their whole young men all their lives, bringing them into the lusty setting. Well, the question was, did we ever love any of these guys, any of these children? And of course the answer was no. They didn't love them. They exploited and used them for their own pleasure, as if they weren't even human, as if they didn't count. They were just their own personal little sex toys. The guy, Ken Hovind, who was railroaded into jail by the IRS, using drug dealer laws against a Christian minister. One of the persons who was victimizing Ken in the middle of all this thing, he had been busted in a sting operation where he was getting off an airplane to go meet I think I heard 5-year-old, to go meet a 5-year-old with a Cupid doll and a jar of Vaseline. How disgusting is that? He hung himself in jail. He destroyed the temple. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. That's not good. Wish I had a voice. But I think today I'm going to go to the Mission and play this evening. Check out this one. I I just did that the other day. And I'm like, hey, it's Layla. But that's whacked out too. This thing's way off. It's trouble having 12 string. That's your cheap one. It's not a cheap one, but it's about the cheapest one you can get. How's that? I got even a bet. I mean, I got a Takamine over there, but I can't get it to work right. Well, of course, I was working it before I got this one. That's for sure. I should have been talking before while doing this, but I didn't. But Leonardo DiCaprio had no protection. He had no father, and his mother apparently just fed him to the wolves. So he's surrounded by pederasts, child molesters, and all kinds of things that Disney continues to hire. Now, Disney hired this guy Peck after knowing that he had this criminal background of being, and they put him with kids. Who did that? You know what people should be doing out there is asking for an accounting of this operation where we have our children, because Leonardo DiCaprio. The reason I even mention him is because when I was reading Bukowski, who was a drunk, and I like Bukowski's work. I think that man is the first one to ever tell the honest to God's truth in poems, and a lot of them were highly entertaining. But he mostly picked on he mostly picked on people who were all full of pride and Hollywood types and even the Beats, he wouldn't be any part of the Beats because he thought they were all phony liars and posers, which of course many of them were. DiCaprio was brought to Bukowski, I think as an infant, because his parents were hanging out with that, on that swell, the Bohemian Rhapsody type of people. They artists. They hang. Of course, Bukowski was one of the best poets of his day and of this day. If there's great poetry, Wright is a great poet, and I really enjoy his work. And there's a lot of poets that I haven't Everhart that I haven't. Even Bly is a great poet. Sylvia Plath was a great poet. What happened to her? I don't know. Her husband, her problem was she had no faith in anything but Ted, and it destroyed her life. Ted was, a red hot blooded British male who had no qualms about swinging his thing in any and every direction except hers. He saddled her with 2 children, and let me tell you something, man. This woman wrote better poems than Ted's a good poet. Ted Hughes, he is a great poet. I love his work, I really do. Used to. Things change. It's still good work, but she was better. She stripped away all the affectation, I think. Well, her language sung. It was beauty. It really was. Glimpses of it, My point is that you can easily say her environment dragged her down. Sylvia wrote Ariel, which was, they try to capitalize on that by, writing 1 million books about the book of poetry. Like, when I started going through my books around my bedroom, which I I guess I gotta show every a bunch of times. But see, this is it's the living. Those are CD. I mean, those are movies. I'm sorry, movies that I dragged out. That I had them in the bedroom. Now, when you become a Christian, all of a sudden you want to throw out all the things that suggest evil, whatever. But that's not how life works. Anyway, as you can see, let's see the pile here. Migration, prayer before dawn, Beckett. That was pretty good. That's about the. Oh yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Haha, that's funny. Beckett was a priest who was killed by the king's four henchmen, who were, in the movie they portray him as drunks and just out for a good time, don't care about repercussions or their soul or God or anything. But here's the situation. The priesthood in Beckett's day, now the king was a great-grandson of William the Conqueror. So he was a Norman. He wasn't an Anglo. That was what the movie was trying to show, the division between which they weren't natural born either, the Angles. They weren't, they took it from somebody, but that's not the point. The point is that the clergy at that time they weren't subject to the regular courts of law. They were heard in their own courts, which would unerringly, every time, would not prosecute. I'm talking about murderers, rapists, child molesters, whatever your crime. If you were a priest and committed these crimes, you were not held responsible. You were already forgiven, and you were not subject to the laws of the land. You were subject to the laws of the clergy, which they did not enforce any of the laws that these guys broke. Now, if I was a child molester or a murderer or whatever, what would I do if I wanted to protect myself from the behavior that would put me in jail? I would join the priesthood, because I would know that they don't prosecute me for my evil deeds, and that I can continue going on doing my evil deeds until the outcry became so vehement that I would have to go into hiding, which is where they take care of that too. When the crowd roars for your blood so loud, the Catholic Church may give you up, but I doubt it. Anyway, because then they'd pull that thing about the sanctity of the church. Whatever, the sanctity of the church has been abused since they invented. I don't remember anywhere in the Bible where it says priests should not be held responsible for their actions. Now, this is my point was that they write a lot of books about everything. They believe me, that's how they make money. They write books and they sell them. People buy them, and the money comes in, and bing, 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 people get rich. Every book is about something. There isn't any book written that starts out as a book in itself and doesn't rely or fall back on any other book in order to purport or in order to say what it wants to say, in order to, except the Bible. The Bible is a book that's in and of itself the Alpha, the Omega, the Aleph and the Tav, the beginning and the ending, infinity. It's the only book. But that's, I'm really not going to expect you to take that. The point is, I really got it pared down to the simplicity of evolution is wrong. And the people who are going to start admitting that, you will find, are part of the smartest people on the planet. Hawkins will have to admit that if anybody asked him, because it's perfect logic. And here it is that Darwin stated that if any part of my theory is proved wrong, the whole thing falls apart. Well, DNA cannot come from nothing. It just can't. You can't. There isn't any pre-DNA thing. I mean, they got RNA. It's deoxyribonucleic acid. RNA is just ribonucleic acid without the deoxy. It doesn't have the information that DNA has. to. And look at how DNA, when they just gave, Crick is the one who read DNA and took it apart. Crick. He said the chances of DNA happening, and I'm repeating myself here ad infinitum. Crick said the chances of it happening are a 10 with a million zeros behind it. Eggheads say that anything with a 1 in 1,000 chance is impossible, so figure it out, do the math. Also, mathematicians state that math shouldn't work, but it does. Numbers are the strangest things. When Christ said, that there was 153 fish, or Christ didn't say, Christ told them to throw the net out. When they threw the net, they counted the fish, there was 153 of them. The number 153 is a tricky one all in itself. 153 is the number you get when you go 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 2, 1 times 3, 1 times 4 times 5. But that's only one aspect. There's all kinds of wild things. Anyway, evolution could not have come from nothing. There couldn't. A warm little pond is what they state. I mean, when I talk to people, they never heard of this warm little pond thing. But that's the whole essence of it's the whole essence of it. Like when they did the first experiment, they tried to create a warm little pond and put lightning to it, put the right chemicals in there, mix it up, and try to get life to create itself in a little warm little pond in a jar, whatever. Warm little ponds don't last a billion years. Warm little ponds, come and go like glaciers and continents expanding and Gondwana and the earth being alive and moving all over the place. Well, hell. The simplicity is whoever stated this was genius. Saying DNA came from nothing in a warm little pond developed because some glob of slime gobbled up some other bacteria and DNA popped up somehow out of nowhere and it started replicating itself. Bingo, and that's how it works. The warm little pond. Trouble is, you can't... Oh, I'm sorry. It's a tornado in a junkyard creating a computer. A tornado in a junkyard creating a computer. You picture that? The junkyard is the planet Earth. With all its chemicals, everything else floating around. And a tornado comes by, and the implication is this, that the tornado stirs all the metal pieces up in a junkyard to form a computer, right? Because theoretically, it's the same thing as a warm little pond and the glob of slime capturing bacteria or whatever and coming up with DNA out of that somehow. It couldn't happen. It's impossible. Crick, who was the first one to read it, said it's beyond impossible. It's just beyond. They fed all the numbers of our cosmos, the planet, the numbers of the fine-tuning things, like if there wasn't a billion stars, there would be no life. If there wasn't, in the beginning with there's a warm little pond, another huge problem with that is that they claim there was no oxygen in the beginning. So another thing they're stating is not only did DNA just pop out of nowhere, but, but the original bacteria that created the oxygen killed them off. So these things, natural selection, survival of the fittest, that's wrong right there, because why would the bacteria produce oxygen that was going to kill them and be beneficial to other bacteria coming on later on in the billions of years they claim happened? That's not natural selection. That's altruism. That's when Christ said there is no greater love has man than to give up his life for his friends. So they're saying the first bacteria were Christians. Because they gave up their lives producing oxygen so that the generations a billion years later will be able to breathe. came from monkeys, they claim. Well, how come there isn't a bunch of other half monkeys being made right now? If everything's in flux and everything's evolving, why don't we see anything evolve? Huh? Why isn't there half fish men? How come there isn't half monkey men? Now, I mean, what was it? Was a mistake? You saying that the monkeys threw off a human? That was a mistake, or it was just blind and it doesn't know it did that? How does blind evolution? How does a spider create chemicals to make its predators pass out? How is that a product of natural selection? Huh? And eyeballs. Boy, if you got eyeballs and the other guy doesn't. There was a movie about, it was cuckoo. They put all these blind people, they put them in concentration camps, I think. All these blind people who were affected somehow with blindness, anyway. They sent, one of these women claimed she was blind, but she wasn't. She went there with sight, and everybody else was blind. Couldn't see anything. Completely blind. Now, when the strong figured out that they could get whatever they want by intimidation and violence and murder, they started exploiting all the other blind people. All they needed to do was get a hand on them. Then they could threaten them, whatever. I think that's what they did. They threatened them to get more food, whatever the situation was. But the woman who had eyesight, she let it happen. She watched these people being exploited and didn't do anything to stop it. She just watched. I don't know what the point is behind that, but I think we were talking about this thing being a problem. Man, I just put these strings on. Yes. I found that first place, it's like how life works too. It's tuning the guitar. When you tune the guitar, usually you tune them all to the first string tune. So when you tune it to the first string you tune, the next one's a little bit out. The third one's definitely going to be out. It can't be any otherwise. And the fourth, well, it just gets worse and worse as you go. It compounds the problem. It compounds the mistake that you made by not having the first two strings in perfect unison. They aren't. It's about the rewards you get out of life and music, whatever. The rewards you get out of the guitar is having it sound good to your ears so you can keep going. It's like riding a wave. It is riding a wave. The wave is the music and you're on it. Like I tell people, I just hold on to the guitar and God fills it up, and that's true. Because it's a wave. When you got a good piece, like when I do that's a ride I'm on. It's I'm riding that wave, that music. I'm in like it's Mark, Don, and Mel, Grand Funk Railroad. They wrote the album Grand Funk Survival. I think it was the only album they put out of Christian music. It was good, especially in the 70s when you had all that other bad stuff. You had Norman Greenbaum, Spirit in the Sky. That was saving grace, man. I love that song, and it spoke to, I don't even know if I knew Jesus in that time, but I knew that song spoke about a truth that was bigger than the planet and everything else out there. That's when you start out asking the questions of, well, can God create a rock bigger than he can lift, stupid stuff like that. But also, if the universe is there, well, what's on the other side of it? Simple questions people ask. Like the Greeks figured out the planet was round, and exactly almost 10% of how big it was by putting two sticks in the ground 500 miles apart and measuring the shadow on them. That's truth. There's beauty. And there's your answer. The Greeks had it within 10%. They got flat earth sites on this thing right now. Showing you how stupid people are. It's not people are stupid. Most people, you'll notice they found Christ or in the Bible, at least they got their stuff healed, is because when you're in a desperate situation, desperate is dying, your child dying, somebody you love dying, or being afflicted with some disease your whole life, blindness, whatever. This is desperation. Now, of course, you're blind for 40 years, your desperation is gone, your panic is gone, of course, you learn to live with it. But if you find out there's a chance you can correct your blindness, or you can obtain sight, that's when desperation hits. And you go be desperate. And that's when faith, you see, God said, or Christ said, my power is made perfect in weakness. Well, there you go. If the weakness is people being desperate for salvation, desperate to be healed, desperate to heal their children, desperate for sight. And under those circumstances, your faith is very receptive. Your faith is ready to work miracles for you. All you need to do is engage it in the name of Jesus Christ, God's only Son, who came down and was crucified on the cross to pay for all the sins that we continue doing. Amen. Triumph and praise God. The people out there who won't even bring a child into this world because they think it's so screwed up, shame on you. Shame on you. God brought his only Son into the world to kill him for us. That's wrong. There we go. Our Father, like we always do. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be Jack Lehman, friend of my dad's, long time ago. Just remembered him. I don't know why. Fred Lehman was his brother, who we knew in Florida. He called himself the Baron. He produced a little magazine, 2 sheets, about Allenhurst, a little rich enclave. Short, down here. Allenhurst about 5 blocks long. Next to Asbury Park. Bruce Springsteen's, it ain't Bruce Springsteen's. I was there before he was. I'm here now after he left. He did nothing for this place. For down here, he's done nothing. Absolutely nothing. A man with all that money, he goes and plays in Stone Pony once in a while. That's despicable. I met a kid. I was in a ShopRite this morning. I saw a kid walking, a backpack on, whatever. And I asked him what he wanted. He wanted some coffee. So we went and got coffee. We went and had some coffee, and why did I come up with this Jack Lehman thing? He wanted coffee. We got coffee. Oh, that was it. I asked him where he was staying. Sorry. I asked him where he was staying. And he told me a mission in Asbury Park. A mission. They don't have one at Toms River. That's why he came to Asbury Park. They have a mission down there where you can spend the night. Because otherwise they were living under the boardwalk. People, kids. 2 kids. Now this shame on Bruce. You know, I'm really aggravated now at this guy, who's done nothing for anybody but himself that I know of. Now, look, I don't know the guy personally, but I know that he represents Asbury Park, and Asbury Park is an insult. Is an insult to God. You got kids dying under the boardwalk. You got fentanyl poisoning the dope. I mean, it's bad enough when you're a junkie, you know, as a kid, because the world is so screwed up. You got nothing to look forward to. They took God out of school. So why shouldn't kids be doing heroin? Because they know there's a truth out there that's being withheld from them. So what choices do you have? Drinking and doing, especially if you're poor. What choice do you have? You got no future. You got nothing to look forward to. Poor people don't kill themselves. Rich people kill themselves. You know why rich people kill themselves? Because they realize they have it all and they're still empty. Poor people don't kill themselves because they haven't got it yet and they got something to look forward to. It's the rats that they used in an experiment to drown. They drowned rats. They put them in a little glass cage. They pumped water in their face and made it rough so that they drowned. And it took about 17 minutes for, I don't know how many rats they did, but it took 17 minutes to kill them. Then they decided, I guess that got boring, so they decided to rescue the rats at 16 minutes. When they did an autopsy on the rats, they found out that all the blood was in their thorax, which means they didn't swim. They just died because what's the point? They died. They rescued the rats out of here, kept them for 2 weeks, and put them back in the tank. They lasted 37 hours. A ridiculous thing like that. Blood was all in their limbs because they swam till they died. Because they had hope. They had hope. Nobody has any hope in Asbury except for this Christian mission that opened up. Now this kid who was homeless has a place to spend the night. He also has community and fellowship. I didn't see Springsteen operating any homeless shelters down in Asbury Park with all his billions of dollars. I know somebody used to go and work at the place and they'd shove $500 in your pants pocket. Why don't they go down to Asbury Park and shove $500 in what is going on down there? All they are is attracting people to come down and get drunk and puke and just continue to destroy Asbury Park and this place down here. I'm an expatriate. I grew up here. I left when I was 27. I had to. This place was killing me. I was on heroin when I was here. I left here on methadone. I didn't look back. I headed straight south to Florida. I didn't do dope again for 30 years. I don't see anybody helping Asbury Park. And you have all these artists that want to associate themselves with Asbury Park. I don't know why. Do they know Asbury Park? Do they know that we got children dying under the boardwalk? See, the cops go along every night looking for feet. And because kids live under the boardwalk, because they got nowhere else to go. So, as miserable as that is, and they're also doing dope under there. So the cops go along at night looking for feet, and I guess they tell them they got to go. They can't sleep there. And go sleep somewhere else. Just move it. They did the same thing in London. Jack London wrote a great book about him going to England and living like the homeless for several months. I think he did it. It's in his writings. Just look it up. He got social writings. He was a communist, whatever. Nothing's being done in Asbury Park. Obama and I guess Trump, they're not doing anything about this outrageous opium epidemic that these kids are going through. Nobody cares. They're still dying. Anyway, I'm sorry. They're looking for feet. And these kids had climbed up so far, they didn't have their feet exposed. So the cops didn't know they were up there. And nobody knew they were up there until about 4 days later when you started smelling the decay of human flesh. And I don't know if it was a guy and a girl. I think it was. And I think they were both young. I'm sure they were. Now, how did, I know a lot about drugs. How did they both die at the same time? I don't understand. Usually, well, that's not true. If one person does drugs and the other guy passes out or whatever, they're like, oh, it's good stuff. Let's do it. Nobody's doing anything about this opium epidemic or about Asbury Park. The fact that Asbury Park is not family friendly at all. The Berkeley Carteret Hotel, which I just got done working in for a year and a half, well, that's another subject in its own. The person who runs the place is totally devoid of any character whatsoever. Most of the people are either alcoholics, drunks, or whatever. The one guy who was there just had to leave is because he was a drunk that they allowed to be drunk all the time. Nobody said anything to him. He listened to pornography in his room at the top of its lungs so that they had to go up and complain, ask him to turn it down because the guests were hearing his pornography blasting. He was a drunk and he was getting ready to go to jail for a DUI. Drink and drive, that's where you should be, is in jail. Or in rehab, something. I was told when I went to a rehab for drinking a long time ago, and I wasn't really, I was a drunk and a drinker, but I mean, I tried to kill myself with it too, but there's no buts. I was in a place for drinking. I should have been there for drugs. I probably, whatever, I should have been there for both. And I should have stayed, but I didn't. I couldn't. Anyway, besides, they didn't help me at all. It's absolutely not. But the doctor told me, and this is a doctor with experience like nobody has. He said, Frank, I would rather have 100 junkies to fix than one good drunk. And what he means by that is that a person who is so involved in alcohol as a regular imbibement, whatever, the person who's got to live drunk is just about impossible to rehabilitate, is what he said. In other words, a good drunk, a person who really, a good drunk knows how to drink and is an alcoholic and drunk all the time, not that you'd even notice on some people, they are impossible, really. They're impossible to fix, I guess. But the issue is not impossible to fix. Of course, Christ fixed everything, and all they need to do is find Jesus and they'd be fixed immediately. But drinking is a lot more serious than drugs, according to him. Drugs are serious in that it's killing people. A friend of mine that I've known for a long time, he managed to escape along with me all the people that died when we were younger, doing heroin at 20 years old. A lot of them are dead now. Boatsy Axelson, dead. He was an angry guy. I knew him when I was a little tiny kid in Seabright. He was always, we always looked up to him because he was older or whatever, but, later in life, it just fell apart before he died. He was pissed to bed drunk and heroin. Mostly, I think he was after drinking. but he died. Jesse Brand, I think was his last name. He died. He was a contender for the fight. He was a fighter. He he was like going on the circuit, and he was a contender for some important crown somewhere or whatever. And when he got paid, he went out and bought a bundle of heroin. Now I guess he was doing heroin before and after that. He told me the story. I used to hang out with him. He had a busted nose and all this. He wasn't a bad looking guy. And he had a Jewish girlfriend who died with him. They both died of AIDS. Uh, and we got high with all these guys, and nobody could understand. John couldn't understand why he and I didn't die. He said because we were like Pac-Man. He said we had a lot of things, but we weren't like Pac-Man. I was a born again Christian at 17, and he never was. And bad on me for not even trying. Who knows, whatever, I don't remember. But John recently, in the last year or two, whatever, I saw him again after many, many, many years, and he was having huge problems with his hepatitis C. Very skinny, teeth all gone, and drinking. Not that I noticed him being drunk, but he was a drunk, and he was drunk from morning, noon, and night. And I saw his brother Anthony recently, but anyway, John was dead when I saw him. He had been in a coma several times for 30 days intervals, 30 days worth of coma, and then come out of it. I think that happened to him like 3 times. When I saw him for the first time after 20 years, 30 years, he came running over to where me and this girl were visiting his brother in a store. And he comes running over, and man, he looked terrible. That's when I was at my best, and when he was at his worst. And not my best, I mean my financial best. It looked like I was doing fine. I had a brand new car, brand new girlfriend, all that good stuff. Brand new money, brand new condo, sailboat, everything I could ever want. But there was no God, so I had nothing. And John stated to another gentleman, got another guy that he was going to the clinic with. Of course, both of them, Anthony and John, had been on the methadone clinic since we were all 20. They never got off. I left New Jersey and got off. They stayed on John died on it, and Anthony, his brother, is still on it. They get like take homes, 30 of them or something like that. I don't know. I didn't ask. Anyway, Anthony's funny because, as I said, we had a car accident where a girl died, I believe, and the other girl was paralyzed. I couldn't stay because I had a warrant out for me. I told the guy to slow down before we got to the curve in the road. It was raining, and we slid into the Volkswagen, hit it head on. Now, he was doing the speed limit and everything, I'm sure. And those girls, I'm sure, saw us coming up the street, even if he had his lights off. It had just gotten dark, it was raining, and we slid and hit those girls. And we were picked up off the ground, and a parachute gently landed on the ground. John and I both had a little cut on our knees at the same place where he was sitting in the back of me. And I got out of the car and went over to the Volkswagen, but there were people running out of their house up to the Volkswagen at that point, so they didn't need my help. I told the people in the car, I have a warrant out for my arrest, and I left. The kid who was driving went to jail eventually, vehicular manslaughter and whatever, but it really wasn't, it was his fault not to have, he should have slowed down, but he didn't break any laws. He shouldn't have gone to jail. He didn't break any laws. The car slid over there. It was the rain. It was just an act of God, actually, what it was. And, which everything is. Yeah. Bruce Springsteen. Bruce! If one person watches this and it gets to Bruce, I've done my mission. I've done what I needed to do. Bruce, put some money into Asbury Park. Try to make it more family oriented. Because who wants a place that attracts drunks from out of town? We have our own drunks. We don't need to import drunks from other places. You think drunks spending their money in Asbury Park is going to improve it? Ill-gotten gain? This TriStar place that runs the boardwalk isn't. They're not about developing a family-oriented, peaceable neighborhood. No, they want to pump drinks in everybody and make them drunk. And what they are making the place comfortable for is the gay and lesbian lifestyles. What about the people who aren't gay and lesbian, or aren't homosexual and lesbians, or transgender? What about them? Do they have to, if they have to have all this shoved in their face and be neglected, and have the gay and lesbian community be exalted above everything and be attracted? And so you want to attract these people to the detriment of everybody else? What are you doing with this place? Asbury is just it's a microcosm of the world. It's sure of the United States for sure, but it's got every ethnicity in there and no God. I mean, there's churches all over the place. They ain't the kind of churches you can just walk in and worship. You don't know anything about them. They're hidden. They're like secretive. You know, there's no salvation in Asbury Park. If you look real hard, you'll find it, but they're not welcoming anybody. This mission, I didn't even know it existed down there. I'm gonna go play the guitar at that place if God so wills it. I'm gonna try it. When I came back to this area after being gone so long, trying to see the improvements. Here's funny. They took away the pier and they put a bunch of high end stores and restaurants there in that area where people I used to go out there and sit on the pier and watch the ocean. You can't even walk in there anymore. You can't. You got to just go sit in a restaurant order. They've taken the ocean and are charging people to enjoy it now. Of course, you could look at the ocean anywhere you want along all of Ocean Avenue, but they took the pier out, and that place where the pier was, they've made it into a fortress of high-end shops. Here's what happened when I was driving for Lyft. I went there. I just remembered this. I went there and picked up two people, a guy and a girl, I think. Maybe it was just a guy. I don't remember that part. Yeah, I think it was just a guy. And I think the people before me may have thrown a beer bottle or something in the back seat. I don't know. I'm just trying to give this guy a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt. He was drunk, by the way. And I don't drink. Hadn't drank in 10 years to that point. Anyway, I wasn't drunk. I was annoyed by his attitude immediately. I didn't say a word. He got in the car. And I don't even remember if we had a conversation or not. I just don't remember. But I took him where he had to go and I dropped him off. I don't even know if he paid me. I don't even remember. All I know is that he must have complained to somebody because they fired me right then and there without, sorry, battery's done. They fired me right then and there. I don't know when that happened, but I was saying that I went to pick up this drunken guy at this enclave, the fortress of shops that they made, where you have to have money even to go in there and look at the view. But I picked up this guy, brought him home, and he called Lyft and said, I don't know what he said, but I was fired right then and there. Bang. Do not pass go. Do not collect your money. You're done. You're fired. That's it. Finished. Fired. Bye. That was the end of it. I never heard another peep. They fired me, and that was the end of that. I never even thought about trying to get even with them for that. But anyway, we're plugged in.